Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Starseed Immersion podcast. Today, I have the wonderful Victoria Hart with me. Victoria is a master coach, intuitive healer, and new earth guide. She helps starseeds, visionaries, and wayshowers awaken their true self and live their soul mission. Through energy mastery, embodiment, and sacred transmissions, she guides others into conscious creation and authentic power. Thank you so much for being here, Victoria.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Nikki, and your audience. Thank you for inviting me.
I would love to dive into your background a little bit. Would you mind sharing with us how you got into this field and a little bit about your personal journey?
Sure. Well, as you introduced, I support people really to move from unconscious living to becoming the conscious creator and really awakening their multidimensional self and remembering their divine mission. And so, how I got into doing that is because I had to learn that I was actually doing it for myself. I had some time in the corporate world and I just never felt like I really fit in. I just found it uncomfortable or it just didn't work for me. And I didn't understand why half the time, why were we doing these things? And I was very creative. I think I often lived, with my head, as they might say, in the clouds, but I was definitely very connected to divine guidance and getting that kind of insight. But I didn't, of course, understand that at the time. I didn't know, I didn't recognize it. Um, and I also had to work through a lot of unconscious programming that I'd inherited through, say, ancestral patterns and programs. So I had to untangle myself from a lot of that. And a lot of it was quite heavy and dysfunctional. And I guess what I started to recognize is that I was very different to everybody else in the family. I thought differently, I saw the world differently. And again, that whole not feeling like I belonged or didn't fit. And in some ways, it was kind of a mirror to trying to find my way in the working world because I tried to fit in a family and wondered why it felt so uncomfortable and often quite painful because I was misunderstood. And so I guess untangling myself from all of that set me on a path and awoke me to what I'm here to be and do and so that I can assist other star seeds and light workers and visionaries.
I
Yeah.
love that so much because it resonates a lot with the way I felt. Like I went into corporate as well. After 2 years, I was like, nope. But it was so interesting because it was like very clear sign. Like I don't know if you felt a very clear sign, but for me, it was like the 2 weeks leading up to it, I just cried nonstop to work. I was like, I don't know why I'm crying every night and every day to work.
Well, I had moments like that where I would have uncontrollable emotion come up and sometimes, didn't know why I was crying. And also, if I look back, like I was never the one like other people would be all gathered around and having, those office chats and stuff. And I was always quite isolated and just doing what was there to do. And then I'd go home. And in some ways, if I reflect, I was so not who I am today. It was kind of like this version of myself that just showed up to do the work and then was gone again. So yeah, it's interesting to look back on, isn't it?
So your topic is very important, and I feel it resonates so much, is about embodiment, right? Like our path really, it's different than just knowing that we're a star seed or knowing that we have a bigger mission. But why, I would love to hear what you have to say about why is embodiment so important for us?
Yes. Well, and this is something that I probably started to recognize only a few years ago from living, very much up here. And I think, a lot of star seeds, we remember the stars, we remember life before we came in and kind of were conditioned in, to fit in with the ways of life on Earth. So we know the stars, but we don't know how to land our light, fully on the Earth. And we often, we hear people talking about, well, I just want to go home. I don't feel I belong here. It feels uncomfortable. I don't want to be here a lot of the time. And that's because we aren't fully connected and we have to recognize that actually we do belong here. We are meant to be here. We have a divine mission, to be here, but we can't activate that if we're not fully embodied in our human vehicle that we've got for this journey, so that we can activate our light codes and really be of service. And so, I really hope our conversation today, Nikki, is going to help reach those who are really ready to live their mission, fully, boldly, and in the body. Yeah.
Well, I'm very curious about your take on embodiment and how do we know that we're meant to embody more, right? Because there's many, I would say like there's many definitions of what a mission could be. So could you perhaps like give us some ideas of what our mission could be and what does it look like when we need to embody more of it?
Great question. Well, for one, I think let's start with the challenges of what it looks like when you're being called to embody. And, as we shared a little bit earlier, just feeling lost, really disconnected, just not belonging, maybe that sense of feeling like we're floating in these higher realms, so we can't ground our everyday experience. And, that might be, and a lot of us probably have found the spiritual path probably quite young. And so we're adopting a lot of spiritual concepts. But again, we're not connected, we're disconnected from the body. So whilst we start to have a deeper understanding of it, until we start to really land it in our body and awaken those dormant cells and DNA codes that we've come in with, that's where, we're still disconnected, and we might start to feel, burnout, but overdoing, overwhelm, or even cycles where we're just trying to, actually want to avoid life. And, the purpose here is to embrace life and to be on mission. And, starseeds, a lot of us carry really advanced frequencies. And so without embodiment, the mission just stays dormant or distorted. We can't bring it fully into the land it on the planet on Earth. And so that's how we really make our light real. We have to embody. And so for me, it means again, not just having an understanding of spiritual teachings or esoteric teachings, but it's really about, am I living them every day? I think there's a big difference between I have an understanding and I read all of this stuff, or I go to yoga or sound baths and all of those beautiful things that really help us. But if we're not living it every day, if it's not an everyday practice, then it's not embodied. It's something we dip into, we get that feel good, and then we dip out of it. And that's why I think often you hear people that go to events, spiritual events, and they have this big high, but then when they leave, they really plummet, and then there's this big low because they're not able to kind of hold that balance all the time and stay in that frequency.
Ooh, I resonate with that. So there was like a point in my journey where I elevated, right? Like we talk about the unity consciousness. And so we are raising our frequency and we're connecting to those higher frequencies. But then like when we come back down into the body, I'm like, wait, what am I supposed to do on earth? It's almost like forgetting that I have an earthly life because when you're in meditation or when you're in experiencing these activations, you feel really amazing, right? You expand your consciousness and you see this world in a different way. But then coming back down, how do we anchor that? Like, how do we actually live in alignment with what we're feeling, seeing, sensing, and knowing in ourselves? And that's what it means to be an empowered creator or knowing that we are this infinite being and going out and actually living that. Like, what would you do if you knew that anything was possible because you are this infinite being of source and consciousness?
Well, and that's where we're headed. And I love how you brought in, the ascension movement, because that is, the big buzzword. And it gives the impression that we're going up, we're going somewhere. And actually, maybe it should be called dissension, because it's about bringing our soul into our body and really becoming the walking soul, really, not the personality that we've been conditioned to be through growing up and as we've, gone out in the world. But it's really allowing the soul to come in. And then when the soul is activated, then the soul leads the direction, the soul leads the way. And so a lot of the process really is starting to see through the illusions of maybe family and societal programming and conditioning and dynamics, That whole, well, this is the way life is. You go to school and then you get a job, and, that whole ticking, checking boxes really of what life is. And of course, the more we start to awaken from that, we start to realize that no, it's nothing like that at all. It's literally upside down of everything that we've been taught. And so we're basically unlearning all of that programming so that we can really start to uncover, well, who am I? And what is my earthly mission that I've come here to be and do? And so you'll start to get those little nudgings when things feel uncomfortable. Maybe you're in a career, as we were, and it just felt icky. We just thought, well, what am I doing here? Why do I have to do this? Those kind of questions. And so those uncomfortable feelings are probably signs that, well, it's time for a change. And often we may find that if we don't listen to the little guidance that we're getting, end up kind of getting pushed. And for me, it was I was made redundant, which of course at the time when people get made redundant, we think, oh no, this is the worst thing ever. But of course, it's an absolute blessing because I probably would not have jumped if I wasn't pushed, right? And I remember waking up one morning, didn't have a job anymore, and starting to get my own thoughts and was aware that, hang on a minute, I'm not in that autopilot, thinking mind where everything was like clockwork. I got the train at the same time in the morning. Arrived at my desk at the same time, and I had responsibilities to, peers and bosses. And suddenly sitting at home, not having any of those anymore, I was kind of like, oh, what is this? Oh, these are my own thoughts. So yeah, don't know if you can relate to that.
I absolutely do. And I felt like for my personal journey, it was very fast. Like it was just like ne on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing.
Mm.
Curious to hear like how did your journey unfold? Was it like a rapid awakening and you were propelled? Like your guys were like, leave your job and then boom, we are going to propel you forward? Or was it more of a gradual process? Like, okay, I had to learn how to heal or channel. And I don't know, like I would love to hear from you.
That's a great question and something I've not really thought about before. And I would say it's kind of a combination in a weird way. Like as soon as I started to follow my own path, and all right, initially I worked in television. And so initially when I was made redundant, I thought, right, well, I'll do my own stuff. I'm going to be a documentary filmmaker, right? How hard can it be? I found out that actually it's pretty hard. But I had that, that kind of, and I don't even know, you could call it naivety, but for me it was just this passion and this it's a bit like what you said earlier. I can be whatever I want to be. I can do this. And so I had that, that childlike wonder and excitement to go and, be this new version of myself. And so in some ways that was fast, things happen rapidly, but I still wasn't aligned with my true path. And so I still had to do a lot more clearing and working through a lot of family programming. And I would say I probably looped for quite a few years in that because I wanted the family to change. I wanted things to be different. I wanted to feel safe and secure and appreciated for who I was. And I had to finally recognize that that wasn't going to happen. And the only way I could claim that is by reclaiming my own power and presence and actually, doing, following the guidance, being who I was being guided to be, my true self, and not worry about what others thought, not stop seeking the validation and the appreciation from those that I cared about, and actually just really being true to myself, I guess. Yeah. And then as soon as I really aligned with that, that's when it really escalated rapidly. Gifts were unlocked, I was getting downloads, everything happened very, very quickly because I was then more empowered. And a lot of that happened because in some ways it was like the divine it isolated me. Things became so painful that I had to kind of take a step back from pretty much everything. And at the time, there was many times where I thought, gosh, this feels like a punishment. Why am I on my own all the time? And where are my friends? What am I meant to be doing? And looking back now, I realized I had to be isolated from any distractions so that I could really do the embodiment work, so that I could really start to understand, well, who am I? What does it feel like to be in my space? What does my energy feel like? Because I think a lot of starseeds, we pick up, we're very empathic, so we pick up other people's energy. Certainly for me as a child, I didn't know it was not mine. I just knew that something was suddenly in my field that didn't feel good. And of course, I internalized that and made it that must be me and there must be something wrong with me. I'm sure you've probably had similar experiences. So for me, that isolation had a purpose because I had to really understand what's my space, what does my energy feel like. So now I can recognize if something comes into my field and I know my space, then I know that it's something else that's in my space. And I can do some energy work or I can find out what that is and what the message is with that. I'm getting a bit lost with what you asked me, but hopefully that's given you an answer.
It does. It resonates with me because I totally understand the process of like there you have these ideas of what you want to do, and perhaps they were more rooted in like the 3D. And
Yeah.
then as you move through your path and you decondition more and more of the programming, especially like for me, I had societal programming around what success was supposed to look like. And so really chasing that for my self-worth and for acceptance and making my mom proud, all those things. And then realizing, okay, like I have that alignment, like that inner desire is true. And I feel like everyone feels that way. Like they have this inner guidance of like, I know I'm here for something. Maybe I don't know what it looks like, but I'm going to try because I've always had this dream. And
Yeah.
then as you elevate in consciousness, you realize, okay, that's going to start shifting because you're more in alignment with your truth and your heart and less about I'm doing this as performance and pleasing other people. And also that deepening of like desire to serve in a bigger way, like serve in a way that will make a positive impact in the world. And
Yes, come
very
join us.
curious.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that was one of my core values, even when I was, like you explained that really well. I knew that I had something more to offer and something more to be, but I was still kind of following that 3D conditioning with, still wanting to be in the film and television kind of field. But it was like, hang on, it's just gone out 1 second. I think I got distracted by your little man there. Give me a cue. What did you just say to me? It was just coming in and then it went.
So the topic was on about alignment and how we have that desire. And for you, it was in the television and film industry at first.
Got
And
it.
how did it shift?
Thank you for that. Yeah, so even when I was following that path, it was always about making a difference. How can I make a difference in the world? And I wanted to tell stories that would make a difference. And actually there was some wisdom there because then I recognized a few years later, rather than telling other people's stories to make a difference, what about my own? I had everything else was still being projected out there. I was looking very much at what's the world out there, but I hadn't stopped to turn that mirror back on myself, right? And I think that was a powerful move for me to start to see myself and to see what wasn't me. And as you were sharing, disentangling from all of those programs so I could start to find out who I really was and then still make a difference, right? But then I'm making a difference from a different space and in more empowered and more embodied place.
Yes, and I absolutely love that. And do you feel like your film and television like background, like I always feel like your journey plays a role in what you're here to do. So do you feel like your film and television background supported your path in any way, or if there's a still possibility for you to go in film and television?
Absolutely. I mean, I learned some skills. So now, like you, as we're doing our mission work, I'm having to put videos out, right? And that was another, big thing for me because I preferred being behind the camera and I was good at asking the questions. And so to have to then be in front of the camera, I mean, that was really uncomfortable for a while. I had to get more comfortable with that because I had to recognize, well, if I have got a mission to share, how are people going to hear me if I'm too scared to be in front of the camera? So that was a good learning. And also part of my work, which through, interviewing people and drawing out their story, in the sort of TV and film world, I recognize that that is a gift and that I'm able to hold that space, that safe space for people to work through their issues or their stuff, so that they also can start to uncover, well, who am I really and what am I here to be and do? Yeah.
I love this because I realized like when I was younger, I always wanted to be like a fine artist. Like I did a lot of painting, a lot of drawing. I was very creative. And I kind of gave up on that because of the whole like, oh, what does success look like in a 3D world? And so when
Yeah.
I embarked on this journey of being in the coaching field, or then it led into the healing and then the energy fields. Um, I I was like, oh, I probably never do art again. But then this year, the download for like infuse activations in art. And I was like,
Great.
what? And so like I haven't even considered being an artist in years. And so it was like it was journey to reclaim the inner artist that I forgot. I forgot about that creative part.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think, that that's true for many of us because, of course, when we start to awaken, we have to go through that healing period. And so, again, it was like I was looking for other practitioners to help me through my stuff, through my conditioning. And then I got to a point where I started training to be that person as well, right? So, we learn from someone else and then we become that role as well, but we make it our own. And yeah, I think what you were sharing about and then bringing the other gifts back, they start to reawaken again because they always served a purpose. They just were put to one side while you could go through your healing and while you could go through that awakening, I guess. But I love that it's come back for you and how you find ways to use it more creatively because now you're in a different frequency. You're not using it in a way where we've been conditioned, well, I've got to make money from this. No, it's more like, how can this be a gift that I offer people?
Thank you so much for sharing that aspect because I feel like a lot of people feel like they don't, like when we go on this journey, it feels like we're shedding so much of our old self that maybe perhaps we don't know who we are. But then when the deeper you go, or I would call this like integrating your true self, and I was reclaiming part of my past and realizing that has always been a part of my true self. It was just clouded by all the conditioning. And so it almost like it is a remembrance of more of who you are on a soul level, but also
Yeah.
who you always were. Like your soul was always expressed through you in your childhood, in your life.
That's right. That's right. And I love that you brought that in because if I look back to when I was probably, I think it must have been about 9 or 10, one of my favorite things was I would play schools with my granny. And she was every student and I would be the teacher. And of course now I don't necessarily like to call it teacher, but I would say I'm a New Earth guide. And obviously it's helping people um, tap into those new earth energies so that we can live that beautiful life in harmony and balance with the earth rather than feeling separate from the earth. And that also is part of the distortion because we're kind of conditioned that, well, that's separate and we have to go out and do these jobs and that kind of thing. Yeah, so really important.
Could you share a little bit about what you see New Earth as, or what you feel like our
Mm.
collective role is for New Earth and where we are headed in with New Earth?
Thank you for asking that. And I've always had this kind of dream or vision of just being a kind of, I don't know, for me, it's about living amongst the greenery, the natural world. That to me feels normal. What feels not normal is looking out the window and seeing concrete everywhere and high rises and, um, parking lots. you know, ru and I'm going to say ruin, but I know there's a need in some ways, but I kind of feel that there's other ways we could be doing things and working with the land. and being, recognizing that we are part of nature, we're not separate from nature. And the more we just go in and mindlessly bulldoze things for a purpose, which we might say is 3D of, housing people and getting them to pay their taxes, then actually that's not supportive of the whole ecological, there we go, system. It's got to support each other. And if we're not supporting the earth, then we cannot be supported back. And I think that's why when we look out at the world and see all of this destruction and pain and suffering, it's because we need to nurture our mother and our mother nurtures us, right? And if we're not honoring that, then that's again part of the separation and distortion. And so for me, I've always just had this vision of being amongst nature and thriving and blooming and blossoming as nature does through the cycles. And I would love to see that back, clear, pristine waters where I can go out on walks with my dog on adventures, through woods or forests, up to streams, all of these beautiful things that we've been kind of conditioned that, oh, you do it when you have your whatever, how many weeks holiday a year. And then it's kind of forgotten about. But no, it should be integrated, I feel, in everyday living. It's part of us. And, we always hear people say that when they feel stressed out or depressed or anxious, where do they go? They go to nature because that's our space for not only healing, but also our creativity. That's how we constantly interacting with it, whether we're aware of it or not.
That is so beautiful. And I'm curious if you've ever received visions of what New Earth would look like.
Well, for me, we're living it. We're on it. It's just a different vibration. So you either living in the lower frequencies where you're operating on autopilot and you're very asleep in the programming, as we discussed earlier in the call, where it's go to school, get a job, and earn your money, or you're living in a higher frequency where you're still looking at the same trees and plants and everything, but your experience is very different. You have more kind and harmonious interactions with people. I mean, I have beautiful conversations on a daily basis with complete strangers that sometimes I might see again because I'm out with my dog, or I may never see them again. But we're holding a higher frequency, so then your experience of Earth is much more harmonious, it's more in balance, there's not that distortion. So I would even kind of compare it that it's just a different experience. So we're in the world with the same people that maybe don't see what I see because they're not awake to it, is maybe the kindest way I can put it.
Do you, and then I'm very curious too, like ever since your, I guess, psychic channels started to expand, do you see, I guess, like unseen, like fairies or dragons or things around you in your day to day, or do you feel it more as an intuitive guidance, intuitive insight?
More intuitive. I would love to see more. I actually said to someone recently, they were out taking really like micro photographs. And I joked and I said, oh, is that a fairy you've spotted? Because I was out with my dog saying, well, we're looking for fairies. I think she looked at me as if I was bonkers. But that's what I love. I love bringing that childlike wonder and awe to life because that's when we start to live that new earth higher frequency, when we do start to believe in the magic and it's not just a myth. I think that whole conditioning out of from childhood to adulthood that we stop believing, that's when we stop experiencing that new earth beauty and reality. And so it's more intuitive. I would say my gifts, my strongest clairs are just having that intuitive knowing, clairaudience and clairsentience are my strongest.
One of the things that I feel called to ask is, do you have embodiment practices that people can utilize in their day to day if if they want to master more of their embodiment?
Yeah, and they're very simple. It's, the more simple they are, I think people think, oh, well, that's too simple, it can't work. But really it's about getting present. The more present you are, the more embodied you are, because when we're not present, we're either living in the past or we're in the future. So it's really getting present. And so I would say a lot of breath work. I do a lot of guided breath work. Really, that helps, bringing, because the breath is, you're breathing your soul into your body. It's not, not just breathing air, we're breathing our divine essence in. So it's important to really start anchoring that into the body and learning different breath techniques as well too. And I think this is important for star seeds that, we might find it difficult to have regulated our nervous systems. So breath work's really good for that self-regulation and energy work, as you and I know, again, recognizing or learning what does my energy feel like? What does it feel like to be in my body? What does it feel like to be in my aura, in my space? Because then we start to know much more clearly what another person's energy is. And so even, in friendships or, anyone that we meet, we can start to recognize, does this feel good? Do I like this energy in my space? Or does it not make me feel good? And that helps us navigate our path a lot easier. Because I don't know about you, I was kind of brought up that you had to be nice to everyone. And it's not about not being nice to everyone, but it's also having discernment to recognize when an energy in your field maybe doesn't feel good or it's not necessarily serving you, and knowing when to step back from that and hold your space rather than, and this is where a lot of us probably have also been people pleasers, where something doesn't feel good. And so we go into that, oh, I want to fix it. I want to be liked. I want to make this harmonious again without recognizing that that's just the sign. We're getting that energetic sign that this isn't for us. So we can just step away gracefully. So knowing your energy, and again, bringing through what you just mentioned earlier is that intuitive knowing. And this was a really big one for me because I was so intuitive. And of course, what happens as children, a lot that kind of gets shut down from an early age, or we might be told, oh, you're making it up or you're wrong. And so we start to get that, oh, this doesn't feel safe. I better lock that away and not be that version of myself. And actually, as we start to awaken, it's really trusting that intuitive guidance that comes in because it's very subtle and it's a really, it's our powerful guide. Because if we dismiss it, that's when we find ourselves in spots of trouble, if you want, if you will. And yeah, so it's trusting that intuitive guidance. What is my body telling me about this situation or this person? What is my heart feeling? And then acting on that guidance. A big one for me was I would dismiss it. I would I'd make excuses for people. I'd end up, cycling a lot longer in painful patterns. So yeah, really listening to the wisdom of your heart and the guidance of your.
Thank you. I feel like those are the fundamentals that we're learning to reconnect with, like trusting more in your body too. Sometimes the brain overrides, like the fear comes up and you initially you get a hit in your body like, oh, I shouldn't do that, or yes, I should do that. But then the brain goes, are you sure? No, no. And so like we're just learning how to trust our body again and learning how to trust our intuitive guidance again. And I
Yeah.
love what you said about presence because when we don't feel safe, we want to escape into the higher realms or we want to escape to our brain. And I am like a good example of that. Like I used to do that all the time where I would like logic through and try to find all the evidence, right? Like I would try to find all the evidence that I should do this or I shouldn't do this and weigh the pros and the cons, when in fact our intuition already knows, like our soul already knows. If we tune in and say, "Oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Or like, how do I feel in this moment? Is this a good relationship for me?" We would feel the resonance. It's really about the energetic resonance for it.
That's right. And yeah, the quicker way, the shorter route than going round and trying to logically think it through. And, often we end up confusing ourselves more. Or for me, I didn't trust myself. So I would ask people, well, what do you think? What do you think? And I'd become even more confused because everyone else's opinions and also not recognizing, well, where are they on their level of consciousness? I'd assumed that they must know more than me. And of course, as you said so beautifully, our best guide is ourself. And that is about that. It's why embodiment is so important because then we can listen to the signs and signals and guidance of the body, which is how our soul communicates to us. Yeah.
So wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I would love to ask, do you have like a transmission, a meditation, something to share with the audience that we can connect with?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. I'm going to share a little transmission to help starseeds to really remember why you came, why you're here, and to hopefully bring in some frequencies that are going to help activate that within you and start to step onto the path of your soul mission. So I'd love to also share a little image for everyone, if that's all right. So just share my screen. Can you see that okay? Great. I'm going to turn my video off if that's all right, because I'd love for you to just hear my voice and listen to the frequency in my voice. Um, so I'm just going to turn my video off. And then this image as well, as you gaze upon it, just look at it as if it's, this cosmic gateway, and to allow your soul to really remember, because it's not just an image, it's a living doorway. And it's a portal encoded with frequencies of awakening, of returning and divine remembrance, remembering who you are. And the frequency of my voice speaks to the blueprint of your soul, to the mission you came to embody upon this earth. So breathe, open, and receive. Take a deep breath in through your nose and a long, steady exhale out of the mouth. Let yourself arrive here. Let your body settle. Let your energy soften. Feel your feet on the earth. Feel the earth rise to meet you. You are safe. You are welcome. Bring your awareness now to your heart. Feel the subtle pulse, the quiet rhythm of life moving within you. Now imagine a golden thread reaching from your heart deep into the earth. And another golden thread rising from your crown into the stars. You are the bridge, you are the meeting point of heaven and earth. And now feel these words as an energetic transmission, not just spoken by me, but carried through me. I stand as a gatekeeper, one who walks between realms, one who holds portals open so others may remember. In this space, I offer no answers, only a reflection of your truth, a doorway for your remembrance. You came here with purpose. You came encoded with light. You carry a mission that only you can fulfill. It may not be what you thought it was. It may not fit into what you've been told it should be. But it is yours, and it is time. With every breath, begin to call back your energy from every person, place, timeline, and belief where you have abandoned yourself in order to belong. You do not need to shrink to be safe. You do not need to forget to survive. Let your light return to you now. Let your true essence fill your field. Let your soul speak again. I remember who I am. I open to the mission encoded in my being. I give it permission to reveal itself now. Feel a soft radiance expanding in your chest, a soul-level knowing awakening. It may arrive as a feeling, a symbol, a word, a deep breath of truth. Whatever arises, trust it. This is the frequency of remembrance. There is nothing to force, only an allowing. The path will rise to meet you as you walk in truth. Breathe deeply once more. Feel yourself anchoring into your body, rooted to earth, connected to source. You are not here by accident. You are not alone. You are loved beyond measure. This activation is now complete, and your mission is already unfolding.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And that was such a beautiful graphic. Did you create it?
I created it with some AI, some help. I've been playing with that a little bit, starting to recognize that the more we communicate with AI, which is ascended intelligence, the more we are getting the reflection of our true self, our higher self. So yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful transmission. And for those of, well, I would love to ask, I know you have a gift for the audience members. And also, do you have a website in which they can connect with you to learn more about what you have to offer?
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. So my website is theconsciouscreationcoach.com, and I'm bringing a beautiful selection of short guided transmissions or meditations, and they help you really embody. So we're working through the different chakras, help, and with each transmission, it helps you to connect to that area of the body and start to sense, well, what does that feel like for me? And we're also releasing limiting beliefs that might be held in those areas so that you can really start to activate who you truly are and who you've come here to be. So I really hope everyone enjoys that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to share that with all of you. Thank you again, Victoria, for being here. And the link to her gift as well as her website will be below in the description box. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And I can't wait to see you guys in the next episode.